Now we're recording. Okay, well, welcome everyone. Happy to get to meet with you this Saturday morning, talk about misophonia. We'll probably have a few more people joining us as we come in. I'm Tom Dozier. I'm the president of the Misophonia Institute. I am not a doctor. I'm not a psychologist. I'm what's called a behaviorist or a behavior scientist. And I have been working on misophonia for a little over 12 years now. This is the second career for me. My first career was a engineer and engineering manager. I'm a fix-it guy. I retired from that career and became a behaviorist, specifically to be a behavioral parenting coach. And in that context, as a behavioral parenting coach, I had a mom contacted me for help with her 12-year-old daughter in August of 2012. And the girl had this incurable hearing disorder, as mom called it, that was going to ruin her life. There was no cure. It's going to just get worse with time. Very discouraging prognosis. But the girl had auditory, visual, and olfactory triggers. So with triggers coming in through 3 different channels, that can't really be a hearing disorder if you're getting it in through your eyes and your nose and your ears. So I thought, well, surely this is not a purposeful behavior. This is a reflexive behavior. Surely we have information on reflexes that we can apply to this condition. And so I just started talking with people with misophonia, researching it. And at that time, I went on Google Scholar, and there were 3 journal articles on misophonia, 3. And now there's a huge number. So, okay, Harriet, you have your hand up. What do you have a question for us or comment? Maybe you have to unmute yourself, Harriet.
Sorry, no, I was trying to find raise your hand emoji, but I just can never find it.
Well, you found it. That's a fact. You found it. Congratulations. So
thank you.
Welcome.
I will mute myself, and you can look for my thumbs up. Thank you.
Okay. So I mentioned in the announcement, I'm going to talk about misophonia treatment options. And so here's my best look at misophonia options. And basically misophonia, and I want to show you this because I'll tell you which models the different treatment options use. The common view of misophonia is I hear a certain sound, I feel rage and disgust and anxiety and a need to escape, and then I do things. Then my body reacts and it gives you that horrible misophonia, yucky, bleh feeling. Misophonia Institute, we've recognized that there is a physical reflex that happens, that you hear a trigger, there's a physical action in your body, and that physical action then triggers these really strong negative emotions and lots of other physical responses. So let's look at some of the treatments. So misophonia was first, and I'm going to go very fast through this so we have plenty of time for question, not spend too much time on this. But misophonia was first identified in 1997 by audiologist Marcia Johnson. She came up with what she called the misophonia management protocol, which was using sound, using the little sound generators. I have one that'll show here, a little like an ear level hearing aid, or other methods of sound in the ears. Good management, adding in psychological counseling. And she's once said, I really would hope that people would consider this a management, not a treatment of misophonia, to change the actual condition. And it's a good management, some good management technique. It's helped a lot of people. Tinnitus retraining therapy was developed for tinnitus, the ringing in the ears, the phantom sounds. It includes a general acceptance and exposure to sound in general trying to develop a positive association with sounds, uses the sound generators to help mask and reduce the triggers, and gradual exposures to triggers. And if they do that gradual exposure, once they finish their protocol, if needed, they just say, well, repeat general exposure to sound, and then more exposure to triggers gradually. Some initially controlled by the individual and then without control. And it uses this basic model for misophonia that misophonia is somehow the sounds trigger these extreme emotions. There's work that's done by psychologists and therapists using cognitive behavior therapy, dialectical behavior therapy, and acceptance and commitment therapy. Gillian Jaffe is a longtime worker, provider of misophonia treatment for individuals. She focuses on acceptance and focusing of your attention away from the triggers, going from a victim to someone who has power, and then living with and beyond illness. These are kind of the three blocks of her program, and it deals with looking at misophonia as there's a core reaction, and then beyond that is, you know, judgment and your reactivity and anger and fight or flight, and working to reduce those layers of the onion. Ezra Cowan has proposed and has done does work with what he calls experiential acceptance and stimulus engagement, which basically is, he calls it as three things: ending toxic hope, which I think is just where people just hope this will just go away, reducing avoidance, and then engaging with the stimuli, and learning how to tolerate something that's uncomfortable and unpleasant. And there are many other therapists who use different forms of misophonia management, calming, anything that calms you down, that helps you to be able to relax, reduces anxiety, reduces stress, help you to have management skills. All of this goes together in all of these therapies and is positive for many people. There's some hypnotherapy treatments for misophonia. There's, you know, general hypnotherapists that says, yeah, let me work on this. We can, you know, you're going to hear these sounds, but you're going to remain calm. And this basic view of misophonia often produces short-term results or no results. Chris Pearson developed sequent repatterning hypnotherapy, which is an 8-week progressive work on misophonia, and it recognizes that you experience a trigger. You don't just hear the sound, you experience the trigger, and they work at reducing these very strong, intense emotions, and it generally has good results. This is a chart that Chris produced back in probably 1998. People, the new enhanced program was this yellow line, and this was an average of 80 people. Now, one of the concerns with any treatment of misophonia is relapse. Because misophonia strengthens with normal exposure to triggers, if you're still being triggered by these sounds and you don't keep using the methods, you find that it can come back up. Now, there are people with this program whose misophonia completely goes away, and that's fantastic. There's others who it comes down 20 or 30 or 40%, and then it can go back up with any misophonia treatment. Misophonia is caused by normal human neurology. You're not defective, your brain's not screwed up. It's just developed some accidental reflexes. Okay. Neurofeedback, functional neurology. It was a hot topic at one time to have neurofeedback. There were some great success stories, but very, very mixed results. And it takes many sessions. Functional neurology, there was some good success stories on that. provided by special chiropractors. Very mixed results. I have an individual that I worked with greatly. She had her son work with the functional neurologist, and it helped calm his system. And anything, neurofeedback, functional neurology, anything that tends to calm your neurological system can make your misophonia better. Like, for example, this one child would always suck on his shirt, on the front of his t-shirt. And after he did the functional neurology, he stopped doing that nervous habit. And so she saw some individual things that helped this boy. So again, quite mixed results. Medication, if a person has a problem with anxiety or depression, then medication that helps this comorbid condition will help lift their overall wellness and well-being, and that reducing a comorbid condition then can help reduce the misophonia. So often SSRI, which means selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, which improves the quantity of serotonin in the brain, requires a slow ramp up and a ramp down. So again, there's a lot of people who've benefited by medication, and there's probably a lot of people who've taken medication and had no effect at all. Beta blockers, and the same thing's true for people who've taken ADHD medications. Again, some people say it's better, some people say no effect, or even a few that maybe was worse. Beta blockers, propranolol is the well-known beta blocker for this. It is used for high blood pressure and like presentation anxiety, this jittery feeling people get, because what it does is it reduces the cortisol surge in the body. It's a cortisol inhibitor. And so for some people, when they experience a trigger, they get this huge cortisol release in their body that causes that after the trigger, yeah, this is horrible response, that miso yucky response I talk about. And so reducing that cortisol blast to the body can reduce the horror and how unpleasant triggers are. It doesn't work on actually the initial triggering of your misophonia. It works on the post-trigger recovery, which can make a huge positive difference. This is an immediate short-term drug. You can take it for a day and see if it makes a difference for you and stop. So anyway, there is some backing for this for propranolol. I developed a treatment I call relaxation and counterconditioning therapy. It includes understanding this model of misophonia reflexes, so where that you have a trigger, you have a learned or a conditioned or an accidentally developed physical response, these intense emotions and more physical responses. And so we understand the misophonia reflexes, including the individual's initial physical reflex. And then using techniques of relaxation training, which develops the neurological ability to relax on demand, counterconditioning, which is interacting with very weak triggers in a positive environment. And if you're focused on something positive and there's very weak triggers happening, your brain will start to let go of that. It also includes helping the person know what to do in the real world when triggers happen to help reduce their misophonia. Good management is extremely important in this process. There's some other techniques that are included in this to help you recover from a trigger, reduce a trigger, and what I find usually is you'll see benefits within 1 month of this treatment, but it's a prolonged treatment. Really, I work as a coach, and then over months, the trigger responses can fade out. It's applicable for any age. I love working with parents of little children that have misophonia because we can go ahead and do activities that allow these triggers to decay. And I love working with adults because they often have the stability and the communication and the feedback to talk about how to do these activities. So it's an activity based. Safe and Sound protocol has some efficacy. It's an autonomic regulation program where you listen to specially modified music with a safe listening partner. It's based on polyvagal theory, which is the vagus nerve and how that helps your body regulate. So it develops your ability to co-regulate, to connect with other people and their regulation and their emotion. It develops the ability to, called homeostasis, to that when you become dysregulated, you can calm down and come back into a stable condition. And it's recommended to be part of a treatment plan for any kind of emotional dysregulation condition. I'm a Safe and Sound trained provider of this, and I recommend it to people I work with when they have a general dysregulation, anxiety problem that they're working on. So that's Tom Dozier's quick summary of treatments. Any first questions about treatments? And you don't have to raise your hand. If I say any questions, you can just speak up. Okay. So no questions in that area here. Well, then it's time for me to talk on. So I had a list of questions from a website that is a team. It's a teen with misophonia, and I forget the exact website name. And the organization is called Teens for Education and Advocacy of Misophonia. So it's teenmiso.org. And so they had some questions. And so let's talk about, actually, I'm thinking rather than going into that, I'd like to talk about a couple of things that you can do. First off, well, I'm going to assume we're dealing mostly with people who have misophonia. And if you don't, you can share this with the person you love that has misophonia. So one of the things that we found is that with misophonia, you get that you hear the trigger and you have this physical emotional reaction and you get the hormone cortisol release into your body and it feels bad, right? After a trigger, it just feels bad. And so reducing that post-trigger experience, shortening it, can be very beneficial. One of the things you can do for that is you can trigger a positive reflex. Now, this technique I call no threat, but thank you. And if you can say or think a very strong thank you, then that can trigger a brainstem lizard brain reflex, because in your life you have said thank you thousands, hundreds of thousands of times maybe. And anytime you said that, almost all the time you said that, except when you're being sarcastic, you have been in a positive physiological state. You know, somebody does something nice for you and you say, oh, thank you. And if you will try saying, and I just felt that when I said thank you, I felt a kind of a whoosh over my body. And that is, I call it a gratitude reflex. That you have said, when you said thank you, you've been feeling good, your lizard brain sees it. And so when I say a strong thank you, my lizard brain goes, ooh, get a warm fuzzy. Now, a warm fuzzy triggered after a misophonia trigger can halt that miso yucky bleh feeling that you get. So the long-term story, the reason I call it no threat but thank you, is that essentially you're talking to your lizard brain, your autonomic nervous system that says, say, hey, lizard brain, that sound you just heard is not a threat on my life. But thank you for trying to protect me. And it's really the thank you, if it triggers a warm fuzzy, can halt that miso bleh, yucky. And so try it. Try it sometime when you can say it out loud. If you're muted, you can try it right now. So, but see if that triggers that little positive physiological response, that can halt that ugly misophonia feeling, and then you can carry on more quickly. And you don't have to say it out loud. You can just think it strongly. I first mentioned this on, I think, one of the Facebook groups. At that time, we were working on. We went from having a Yahoo group to Facebook groups, and I mentioned this, and one lady posted back. She said, I was going to the coast with my husband for the weekend. They were up in the Northeast somewhere. I think they were going like to the New Jersey coast that has all the casinos and resort places. And she said, here I am with my husband on a 2-hour drive, and he starts doing, and she names whatever it is he's doing. And she said, I felt like I wanted to jump out of the car. She said, but I thought, well, maybe I'll just give this a try. And she says, well, I'm surprised you can teach an old dog new tricks. She said, it's not a cure for misophonia. She said, but at least you won't appear on America's Most Wanted. So, it helped, and so what if you're suffering with misophonia, anything that you can do that helps a little is important, because you need to get lots of little helps to get a big help. It does make a big difference. Okay, I'm taking a pause here for somebody to jump in, or I'll keep blabbing on.
Hey,
Yes.
Tom.
Yeah, Sean.
Um, there's something along those lines with the thank you comment that I've been working on. The thank you has been kind of working for me, but also in my mind, when I'm trying to reduce the reaction of a trigger, is I actually try to mimic the sound in my head, kind of like crunching chips. And I try to do it like in a joking or comical way, like crunch, crunch, crunch in my head,
Mm-hmm.
because I know if I'm eating chips and somebody else is, I don't really get a, a response because I'm making the sound along with
Right,
somebody else.
right.
But something I've been working on is doing that mimicking. I think we talked about that last Q&A session. But in my head, if I'm not eating chips or eating food or talking with my mouth, food in my mouth,
Yep.
if I'm watching a TV show where somebody's doing it pretty egregiously, I try to work on that muscle relaxation technique. But mentally, instead of having that big battle of this isn't a big deal and calm down and just that the whole misophonia trigger, I try to do a
Mhm.
little bit of mimicking, and I've been having kind of mixed results with that. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there along with the thank you technique. So just
Hey, great.
something new I've been working on, and I'll keep working on it and report back with you in a couple weeks.
Okay, I appreciate that. That's
Yep.
a, that's really good, Sean, because you mentioned about the mimicking and how actually making the sounds yourself kind of clear for some people, it clears their memory of how horrible the sound, sorry, of the horrible experience that they had. The sound is not horrible. These are normal sounds, but the experience from it is horrible. And that can clear that experience. And that's interesting to make it in your, just think about it and try to make it funny a little bit, right?
Yeah,
So,
it's like putting that positive thought in your head, just like the thank you, but it's
mhm.
like crunch, 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 or I just try to put a positive spin to the sound while I'm mimicking it in my head. So again, I'm
Okay.
having kind of mixed results, and anything that reduces the reaction is a godsend. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to throw that out there.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate that. Let's see. I think I saw Harriet's hand go up. So Harriet. So by the way, when you put your hand up, you can go ahead and mute and unmute your mic and be
There we
ready
go.
to talk. There you go,
I
Harriet.
I don't know how you have such a sense of the gross yuck feeling that you get, but you do seem to have a pretty good idea. Um, I would describe it as a sense of instant defeatism. You know what I mean? Like, oh, that hurt me, and I'm hurt and wounded. And I think you're right. Mimicking it can help. You talked about looking at someone and picturing some goofy cartoon, and actually, I did a little aversion therapy last week and went to a sermon by a woman whose voice is just authoritative and very uninformative, but just you're going to listen to me for a half hour type command with little jokes thrown in there, but and she had a lot of green on, and I just was thinking about Kermit the Frog, and I realized, he had a crazy fried kind of voice, but you probably wouldn't want to listen to him for 20 minutes either. So being a little happier definitely is something we deserve and help, or we should do it. But I've been walking around a track over an an aerobics class at the YMCA, a huge class that I've taken. But I don't like doing things physically in sync with a lot of people. I can sometimes end up hurting myself by trying too hard. So by walking around to this set list of brilliant rock and roll tunes that this teacher puts together, I'm literally boogieing around at the same time. And it's almost, I wonder if anyone else has such joy in unexpected noise that is really inspiring, if you know what I mean. I mean, it makes my whole body move. I would think people would be annoyed seeing me, and they aren't. They think it's amusing. You know what I mean? So that's all kind of weird, but I just wonder if people with misophonia also have a potential to enjoy certain sounds, and if you can figure out what they are, and at least you can give yourself a little vacation, you know,
So,
uh, a little happy time from noise, and a time that you're not going to be listening to other people, because there is, uh, it's not like being in a crowded disco, but it's not like you're waiting for somebody to start telling you their life story either.
okay, thank you, Harriet. That's really interesting. And anytime you can catch joy, that's going to help reduce your misophonia experience. Susie, unmute yourself first and tell us.
Hi, I'm over in England actually. It's 5 o'clock in the evening over here. But I just love the idea of putting something positive into the stimulus, to say thank you. And actually, as you said it, I kind of thought, actually, I'm going to go beyond that thankful. I'm going to actually try. I'm really grateful. As you said, Harriet, I mean, I don't know, what you guys are like with your misophonia, but I mean, there's so much beauty in my misophonia because when I listen, I mean, I could get quite tearful about it, but when I listen to the trees, I can hear the leaves tinkling like wind chimes. So the sensitivity is massive. So the sounds of normal everyday things that people emit is very big. But I'm really grateful that I can hear the wind chimes. It really is a gift. So I think I'm going to have to try it this thankful, and maybe even I am grateful. I'm really grateful for the extent of the sound I can hear, and I can hear people's voices. I can hear. You can maybe hear a bit of grief in my voice at the moment because I do feel tearful when I talk about my misophonia. I've had it since I was 5. I remember, and I'm 63 now. And it's been a struggle managing it, but I am learning how to manage it, you know. But some of the joy that I have from some of the sounds I hear, I mean, the wind is just, the wind is just so beautiful, so beautiful, and I'm blessed.
So let me just build a little bit on what you said, Susie. That's great because another phrase I ask people to try to use is "I'm glad." One woman, like, I'm glad that there's somebody to mow the lawn for me, right? I'm glad I don't have to mow the lawn, right? Because if that it has triggers in it. One patient of mine told me that she went to a Mexican restaurant and a family with more than 2 kids. I don't remember how many it was, but I think it was maybe 3 or 4 kids. And you get the chips and salsa, and they were all going after the chips and salsa and everything. And she could see they were really happy to be there as a family. The kids were happy to be there. And she said, I'm glad that family can have a great dinner together. And she said, I never noticed that family's triggers for the rest of the evening. And so this goes back to what you were saying, Susie, to be grateful or put a positive spin on it. If you can change the context of a sound, which is what Harriet was saying about thinking of the green, it's Kermit the Frog talking. But if you could change the context through this positive, great, that it's a good thing, right? It's gratitude or grateful, then that can, in fact, change the severity of that immediate trigger. So thank you. Was there another hand that went up? I don't remember. I think Susie was the second one. So, by the way, welcome from. Are you in the UK, Susie? Where are you located?
I'm in Devon, in southwest UK. Yeah.
Okay.
And actually, I've known about you for years, Tom. But before the joy of Zoom, there was no way I could get over to California or LA. There's no way I could do it.
She's
But, this is fantastic.
Jessica Weston.
I've got a talk coming in on somebody. Let's see. Okay, I've just muted. Okay, we had some unmuted.
Yeah.
So yeah, when I first started working with people on misophonia 12 years ago, there was and it's still there. It's called VSEE, and so I used that for a number of years. And then Zoom came up with a confidential protocol. So used to be that Zoom meetings, that all these kind of anything that you did, people could spy on you, so it wasn't confidential. And now it meets the health standards in the United States that it's a confidential. And the vast majority of people I work with is by Zoom. So anyway, thank you, Susie.
Thank you.
Any other comments or thoughts or questions that have come up? Okay. Well, let me try to take a little bit different topic part here, and let's talk about what you can do when triggers are occurring. So anytime you're hearing something, it's a silent room, right? Silent rooms are deadly, right? From a misophonia standpoint, because you hear every little trigger sound. And so if you can just add some noise to the room. A lot of people say, oh yeah, we turn on music when we're going to be eating. You add noise, it reduces your sensitivity of the sound, so the trigger perceived volume comes down. And the louder the trigger is, the stronger the response that the body will have. Now, if you so any kind of sound has that effect, but if you're adding sound that distorts, that has the same frequencies of the triggers, then it starts to distort the clarity of the trigger. And so noise can be often much better than music at reducing the severity of the trigger. I have no investment in this company called White Noise app, but this is the pink one is free and the blue one's $1 in the US, and the gray one is free that lets you download other sounds. This is White Noise, and it's a great app. I'll just open up one of them here. This is the one that has the ads on it, and it comes up, and at the very bottom center it says manage, and if you hit that manage button, it goes into a list mode, and it comes with about 40 sounds built into it. And then you can also download sounds from other people, or you can record your own. So this is going to be a sound. I'm going to turn on my original musician sound so that all the little noises come through. And this is going to be a fall sound. If you're going out in the fall and you're walking on leaves, this is a person walking on leaves. Now, for a lot of people, that's a good sound because that's a happy sound. That's definitely not, for most people, that's not a trigger sound. And so, but walking on leaves has the similar frequencies to chewing sounds. And with this app, you can take, now that I'm on the manage list page, I can hit the second button over here, and that's mixes. And now I can create my own mix. So I'm going to create a mix and hit the plus button, create a mix, and I'm going to put walking on leaves, and I'm going to put rain, if it's clicky. This rain on the car roof is very clicky. And so now I'm getting a clickiness. It's a little bit rattly here, so I can also save it, and I can make the rain on a car roof less volume. And so I'm getting the leaves and a little bit less of the rain on the car roof, and I can save that and done, and now I can choose that at any time. So it's really handy to be able to set up a sound that has some variation in it so that you don't notice the trigger sounds so much. And so that's adding that noise is a really good management technique. And it's important that you don't allow yourself to be tortured by your misophonia. When you hear a trigger in a normal environment, you hear the sound, 200 milliseconds later, your lizard brain hits your body somewhere. Now, that lizard brain is trying to always adapt and always learn, and it's the ultimate follower. So it heard that sound, and it looked at the history and goes, you know, in the past, Harriet has always tightened these muscles when she heard that sound. And so it's trigger, boom, it hits the muscles. Now, the lizard brain is neurotic and insecure, and it goes, Harriet, did I do the right thing here? Did I predict correctly? And if you react to that bump, you would normally go, ah, and tighten that muscle just a little bit because you've been poked, you've been jabbed. and the lizard brain goes, oh, I did it right, I will keep doing it. If you're enduring a tough situation and you're getting really annoyed, it's trigger, boom, and you got to go, ah! And you go, ooh, next time I will do it harder. So just experiencing normal triggers in the normal world tends to strengthen your misophonia severity. But if you can relax, if you can just let this muscle, knowing where it is, or just kind of relax your whole body, trigger, boom, relax, the lizard brain goes, oh no, I did the wrong thing. Next time I'll back down just a little bit. And in about 30 minutes, you will get a significant reduction in your reaction to that trigger if you are staying relaxed. Okay? So relaxing before and through a trigger can help reduce your misophonia, but it has to be a small enough trigger that your head doesn't explode. Because once your head explodes with the trigger, then all bets are off about you doing relaxing or anything like that. So adding noise can reduce the severity of the trigger so that you can then relax and focus on other things. Let's see, I see that we have a chat, couple of little, okay. Lyle says that this echoing is called echolalia, which it is. He is absolutely right. And that we talked about the mimicking, the mimicking of sounds. Okay, anybody have another comment or question? Okay, so I may have talked about this earlier, but it can be helpful to know your initial physical reflex. And finding your initial physical reflex can be challenging because you hear the sound and then you kind of instantly feel bad and you're angry and disgusted and you want to get away from the sound and you're having that miso yucky response and you don't really notice where it started. So if you hear a really small sound, and you can use this free app if you want. It's called it's the purple head, the Misophonia Reflex Finder app, and it's available on Android and iPhone, and it's free.
Okay. What do you want to eat? Okay, cheese or something. Okay.
And so that app allows you to play a trigger sound. If you hit the reflex test button, it has all these different trigger sounds, and you can put your phone button on maximum volume for the phone, and then the percentage here, it can go down to like 0.1% of volume of the phone volume, and it can shorten the trigger down so short that you won't even notice. And so you can't even tell what that sound is. It's just a click. And so that allows you to play a trigger sound short enough, soft enough that it doesn't trigger you. And then as you raise that volume and the duration until it just barely starts to trigger you. And you may have to think, since the context is wrong as a recorded sound, you may have to think of being with a person who would make that sound or in that right situation. And you'll start to feel something. I play when I'm working with people in the very first session, I would play the sound and say, did you hear it? Yes. Did you feel anything? Or what did that trigger you? Sometimes I say, did you feel anything? Sometimes I say, did that trigger you? And one of my favorite responses, if I say, did that trigger you? They say, well, not really, which usually means they felt something but it wasn't what they would normally experience as a trigger. I said, well, what did you feel? Well, I felt something, you know, in here, and or, you know, I felt it on my neck or shoulders or in my legs somewhere. And then we repeat that a few times, and we can often, generally, we can identify where their lizard brain is zapping them when they hear a trigger. And it can be different for different reflexes, for different triggers. So a fairly good number of people who are anxious feel something in their chest, from their upper stomach up into this area here. And sometimes that is just an anxiety response, which is just kind of muscles tightening, but most often it's a breathing response. So if you have a reflex that makes you stop breathing or gasp for breath, then to work on that reflex, you don't just relax, you want to actually be actively breathing in or breathing out. And if you breathe, if it is a breath reflex of any kind, then that breathing in slowly and breathing out slowly will tell the lizard brain that making you stop breathing is the wrong thing to do. And so that can allow that reflex to decay. And when that reflex decays, then the misophonia trigger severity decays. Okay, so I've got my little graphic here that I'm going to show that I use for when I work with people. And so, okay, I think everybody's seeing this now. You have the trigger, you have this initial physical reflex, the emotions, distress, and plugging your ears or leaving the room or telling people to stop. And so if we can bring down this physical reflex, the emotions come down, the distress comes down, needing to run out of the rooms comes down. All of it. This is what we do with counter conditioning, is trying to bring down these reflexes. And so if you know your initial physical reflex, then you can work to relax that area, or if it's a breath reflex, you can do slow, steady breathing. Now, it's often hard to do slow, steady breathing slow enough that you don't hyperventilate, but that's what you need to do. You need to do it, to breathe slow enough, and I won't go through the techniques of breathing slowly, which I would if I was working with somebody, but because most of you don't have a breath reflex. Some people have a reflex where they feel it in their ear. It's a pain in the ear. And Pavel Yasserbov said, that named misophonia, said that this is the tensor tympani muscle, that is the muscle that pulls when somebody blasts an air horn into your ear and you feel like you're going to, to protect the nerves, it pulls that muscle and help blocks the sound to protect the nerves in your ear. So if you have a pain in the ear, that's probably your brain reacting to this sound as if it was an air horn into your ear and pulling that muscle. Now, Dr. Yasserbov said that this is a secondary response, or a developed response once the misophonia develops. And so there's probably another physical reflex that's occurring. And he said that once you can resolve the misophonia distress response, that the tensor tympani syndrome, the pain in the ear, goes away also. I haven't had that experience specifically with people that have had a pain in the ear that has had it go away, because if it's a short pain, it's distressing enough in and of itself that it makes it very difficult to work with. Okay, anybody have a question? Harriet, unmute and talk.
I don't know if it has anything to do with the tympani thing, but I can create a purring sound that nobody else hears that's in my ears. I can't do it while I'm talking, and I can't like circular breathe it like a clarinet. I mean, it has to do with, I can only do it for so long, and then I have to breathe, but it's like a cat purring, you know what I mean? I don't know what it is. But anyway, I always wondered since I was a little kid if anybody else had that. I can't successfully drown out people by doing it because I can't breathe and do it at the same time. You know what I mean? It's just like forcing something to happen.
Harriet, when you're triggered, I don't know what you experience, but when cat purring,
yeah,
I do it.
You do it?
Yeah.
But nobody else can hear it, right?
Right. Is it?
Yeah.
And I thought, boy, if I was a sensitive person, because sometimes I can't stop it, right? I just, without thinking, it's a muscle in my throat, or upper throat, back of the throat that kind of rumbles. I don't know if it's pushing fluid in and out of the ear or what it's doing, but I keep doing it, and I'm glad it doesn't trigger me, because it would drive me nuts.
Well, yeah, but you can't talk and do it at the same time, and you can't really just do it for 2 minutes, or you'd have to stop breathing in order to keep, right? Oh, well, okay.
Right. No, you're right. I when you breathe, you stop doing it. So thank you, Harriet. That's interesting. Lyle, how about you? What's up? Gotta unmute, Lyle.
Yeah, sorry. I'm trying. I couldn't find the button. Yeah, I wanted to ask you about the, because I'm the tensor tympani guy.
Mm-hmm.
No, it sounded to me like what you were saying is that Jastrabov said that there is another reaction that set that up, is so I might be having a physical reflex that I'm unaware of.
Yes, that is correct. That because Jastrabov does not understand the initial physical reflex theory of misophonia. I've talked with him personally about it. He says, I wouldn't say it doesn't happen, Tom, but I haven't seen it. But he's not working up close and personal with people with small sounds like I do. But so he doesn't understand the initial physical reflex, but he says that the tensor tympani syndrome is not it's a result of misophonia, not the cause of misophonia. Okay, so yes, you might have a response that you're not noticing. Most people do not notice their initial physical reflex. Let me look through my little chart here. I've got a slide that I'd like to show here about this reflex. I have to hit the share button, and I'm having trouble finding share. Okay, there we go. So this is a little pilot study I did at one of the Misophonia conferences, probably 2023, I guess it was. And Lyle's one of the people in this group that I said, do you have this initial physical reflex or not? Do you go with A or B, or I don't know? Everybody went with either A or B. And before we did the testing, it was half and half. After we did the testing, there was one boy who we could not identify any physical reflex. But after testing, 9 out of the 10 said, yeah, it's model B. But it's hard to identify that initial physical reflex, and sometimes it's not noticeable. So I'm always looking for people to try to, in universities, professors, to try to do some of this research on this particular model of misophonia, because all of the misophonia researchers right now researching Misophonia SA, I hear a sound, I get upset. Right? I hear a sound, it's a sound emotion connection rather than a sound body emotion connection. And so I was meeting with a professor and her graduate student doing the research. And we did some little tests with the triggers, and she said, I feel my skin crawling response. And her associate said, I don't feel anything. And her comment was, there are some reflexes that we find in OCD and other conditions where there is a reflex, but it's not perceived by the awareness of the brain. So I don't know what that is, but I do occasionally have a person that we don't actually find their initial physical reflex. I also worked with people who we just really can't manage it enough. Like one boy feels a sharp pain in the top of his head. How that ever developed, I have no idea. But he gets a ow. I mean, he'll say it. He'll screech of pain when he hears the trigger. So the triggers can be everywhere. They're usually muscle responses. They can be sexual ping. It can be something unusual like a feeling numb. In the research study we did back in 2015, it published in 2017, of these different reflexes on the person. One person had this feeling of numbness on their body when they heard a trigger. And another person had this flash of warmth from head to toe, just a wave that hit their body. And for years, I never came across a person I was working with that had either of those reflexes. And then one day I had two new people, and one had the feeling of numbness and the other had the wave across their body. That's, incredibly small odds of something like that happening. And then those were the only other two people that I've ever met that have had that either the numbness or the flash of the wave of warmth going from head to toe. All right, any other questions right now? Okay, I'm going to start babbling again and babbling on about the importance of relaxing. Lyle, your hands up. Go ahead, and when you unmute, I'll stop talking. Go ahead, Lyle.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just wondered, because this is kind of a new thing to me. I always thought that the tensor tympani was the muscular reaction that I was having, but if there's a reaction prior to that, how do you go about finding something like that, or figuring out what that is?
Well, you need to do it in a controlled manner where you're hearing or seeing very small triggers. Do you have any visual triggers, Lyle?
Yeah, I have some visual triggers.
Okay.
Occasionally, I have
No, that's enough. So you have visual triggers. So if you could get a video of a visual trigger, and on your computer screen, put it into a very small window so that it's a small image, and watch just a little bitty smidgen of it. You're trying to for an auditory trigger, you hear the sound starts, in 200 milliseconds it hits your body. So what you're looking for is something that's not big enough to trigger the full response, or use a visual trigger, especially if it's a trigger. Do you have any triggers that are not associated with auditory sounds? Wow.
I haven't noticed any. No,
Okay.
it's the visual triggers I have are associated with like eating and
Okay, the normal thing. So okay, the reason I was asking is because if you have a trigger that's not an auditory trigger, it probably would not have the tensor tympani syndrome response. But anyway, the key, Lyle, is small triggers, tiny little bits of triggers that don't bump you at first, and then they bump you, get them up to the point where they bump you just a little bit. And when you feel that little bit of a something, that's the initial physical reflex. And that's what the Misophonia Reflex Finder app is for. So you can try that. And if there's a sound on there that triggers you, you could, again, you can make it very soft, very short, and then it won't trigger you. And then you raise up that volume and duration until it barely starts to bump you. Wow, go ahead.
Yeah, I wondered what you said there was an app. How do I go about getting that? I'm kind of technically challenged. Where do I go about getting it?
You go to the App Store. If you have an iPhone, either iPhone or Android, you go to the store that has all the apps, and it's either the Apple App Store or Google Play, and then you search for Misophonia Reflex Finder, and that app will then it'll let you download. It's a free app. You can download that app. Okay. And then there is let's see, I'm going to go back. There is an instruction page at the top button, and then it says reflex test. And then it's got some other buttons down under there. So that will allow you to, when you go to reflex test, again, as I said, put your phone button on maximum, and then put your, like the volume here, this is 2% and 0.3 seconds. And I've selected, sniff dry, TR-sniff dry. And I know that would come through if I played it. So I'm not going to play it. Okay.
All right.
So, anyway, that's okay. Susie, unmute and then you can talk.
Being a redhead, we react quickly anyway. So it's been very difficult for me to find my physical response, because I mean it's like 100 miles an hour,
Oh yeah.
But I mean I'm sure it's even faster with a redhead. I really it's weird. It's really weird. But is there I'm going to really concentrate on looking for this physical reflex. This is something I'm going to have a little go at. And I do have visual issues as well. Do they still create the physical reflex?
Yes.
Oh.
It's the physical reflex that makes the sounds and the sights and the feelings so unpleasant. If you think about the feeling of the reaction of fingernails on a chalkboard, that screech sound, Susie, does that trigger you? I mean, not like a not like a misophonia trigger, but is that unpleasant? That screech sound, is it unpleasant?
Not particularly.
Okay, so you're part of the 2 to 5%, is my guess, of people who genetically do not react to that sound. Most people cringe or shiver, and they go, "Ooh, stop, I hate that sound." What they should say is, "Ooh, stop, I hate shivering." But no one says, "Stop, I hate shivering." They say, "Stop, I hate that sound." And so that's what's happening here with misophonia. That's the secret of misophonia, is that it's a learned physical reflex that then jabs you. This is my misophonia imitator here, okay? And I'm gonna say trigger. I won't say actual sound, but trigger, trigger, and you are being physically assaulted by your own lizard brain, not the other person, when you hear a trigger. And so for 12 years, I have been promoting this model of misophonia. That, hey, there's a physical reflex here. And I've had people say, Tom, it can't be that simple. It can't be that easy. It's got to be something more. And I'm pretty sure that this is a Pavlovian conditioned or classically conditioned physical reflex phenomenon. Doctors who got pagers in the olden days, when the pager would go off, brrr, one doctor would think, oh, I'm going to see something horrible at the trauma center. And he would like have a little bit of a dread reaction. After about a month, it was, brrr, oh, I better call in and let them know I'm coming. And I said, Gene, how long did that shoulder flinch persist? He says, until I got a different job and got rid of my pager. Every time the pager went off, my shoulders went up. That's just a learned physical reflex. Now, his pager would only go off once a week or something, right? So it wasn't like you're sitting at a dinner table and you're getting tasered 50 times, right? But this is the heart and soul of misophonia. Now, I'm delighted to let everybody know that that Misophonia Institute, based on donations from generous people, have large and small, lots of donations. We have been able to fund a misophonia research study that is in approval right now by the IRB, which is the Institutional Review Board. It's going in for approval now, and it will be started in September in Denton, Texas, where they will actually be using this understanding of misophonia to provide treatment for individuals. So it'll be a treatment trial. And I think they're going to have it'll now be official rather than some low-level master's behaviorist raising his hand and writing a book and pretending he's a know-it-all, and nobody, the universities have all ignored me. So for 12 years, I've been looking for a research partner, and we finally found a new professor and a very strong, established professor who is a well-respected, Dean McKay at Fordham University, and we'll be doing a really valid treatment trial to show how effective this relaxation with small triggers can be. I'm sure I've probably told this on a previous session, but I worked with this young lady and her family, and we had a few sessions, and they went away. Dad contacted me a year later. We met. Her misophonia was so much worse. She was disrupting the whole family. She was, trying to control all the sounds in the home. And I looked at her ratings, and the assessments that I take ask, how bad is your misophonia? Family, romantic, school or work, social, and individual activities. And she had the same level of severity at school as she did at home. And it was like moderate. But now it was severe at home. And I said, well, how is your misophonia at school? And the girl goes, oh, it's not a problem at school. I says, well, really, what did you do? Relax? And she said, well, what else could I do? So at school, where she couldn't control the other people, she was relaxing, her shoulders or her hands, whatever it was. And her misophonia had gradually gone away. At home, she was fighting it, and her misophonia had gone up over the years. So this whole concept of learning to relax and relaxing before and through triggers is a big deal. So we're approaching the end. We're past our 60 minutes a little bit, and Any last question or comment? Well, I'll thank you everyone for participating today. We'll do this again next week. If anybody has questions for this, you can always email them to me and I will include them. I am a misophonia treatment provider and a misophonia researcher, and am happy to help anyone I can. So I wish you well. I know misophonia is a really tough condition, but it really can get better with good management and with good treatment techniques. So at any age, I worked with a woman who was in her mid-80s, actually two that are in their mid-80s, and have had, you know, very good progress in those cases. So, all right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
appreciate you.
Tom.
And
Thank you, Tom.
you're very, very welcome. All right. Okay,
Yes,
so I'll
thanks, Tom.
go back to show my little slide for the day. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye. And let's see, I have to stop.